And then whenever the button comes up in the corner.
Yay!
Meeting is now streaming on YouTube. Do we think we're go?
I can have a look if you wish.
Right. YouTube, hold your breath till Alana has a quick look and tells us if we're live. This is our very first foray into YouTube, into live streaming. Are we good?
This
is what it did last time.
No, I think that's a live that we did when we were.
That was a practice run. Okay.
Oh no! Wait! I think we're live. Look! I'll show you. Look! Is that us talking?
I think. You know what? I think let's just take the leap and go for it. And if it turns out that we are once again recording this very first episode of our live stream, and forget
we spoke to ourselves earlier
for the second time today, then we can run with it. Okay, now I think
we're definitely live.
Live. And I am getting messages telling us that we're live, so we are good to go, and we will edit all of this nonsense out later on. Okay, so what I wanted to say was welcome to 21st Century Saints, the very first episode of the first season of our new live stream and podcast series. I am really excited to start.
Don't know if you could tell.
I know, right? We have never done anything like this before, right?
Absolutely not. Never in my life.
Okay, so let's kick off with a little bit of what this is and what we're doing. Okay, well, I should let everyone know that not only is this the first episode, the date is what are we on? The 11th. We're on Sunday, the 11th of April, and it is what now? It's what, 11:45?
11:30.
It's 11:30 UK time on Sunday night, so we are staying up late because we had a first go around at doing this that didn't work out so well earlier. It's taken us this long to figure out the technology, but now we're good to go. So this is a live stream and podcast that's kind of designed for people who are affiliated with or adjacent to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and all things Mormony. We hope to be on YouTube Live, we hope to be on Facebook Live, and we hope to be in podcast form over the next few days. So while we're figuring all of that out, if you would let us know if you have any questions, anything you would like to see over the next few episodes, and we will get back to you. First of all, will we do some introductions? Alana, do you want to go first? Do you want to tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Okay, well, as you know, my name's Alana. I am 40 this year. I am a mum of one girl who is almost 8, although she thinks she's 18. What else? I'm a parent. I don't work. I'm just being a good, strong, independent parent, as we like to say.
Love that phrase.
Yeah, don't do the single parent thing. So regarding church standing, before lockdown, I was active, so to speak. I was there in body, but I've had a lot of struggles. I've had a lot of things that have caused me a bit of pain and different things. So as I stand at the moment, just due to how my mental health was due to being at church, it was really affecting me to the point that I had great anxiety about going to church. I couldn't even do my callings properly. And I realised through lockdown that I've just got to take a step back for the moment. Jane, my lovely friend, always supports me no matter what I decide. And sometimes tries to help me see, that even with the problems and issues, that maybe that's still where I need to be. But she also agrees that when it's affecting my mental health, because I've worked for years on my mental health to get to where I am today. So I realised that it's affecting me too much, so I just need to take a step back just now. So I'm still trying to figure a lot of things out. I'm not saying never, that I'll never go back to church, but for now, I need to just keep a step back. Still believe in God, still believe in Jesus. There's a lot of principles in the church that I do believe in and that I think are great. But yeah, so that's me in a nutshell, really.
Yeah, that is you. That's I guess I would. What would I ask you? To I don't know, things about yourself. What do you like doing? Like, we haven't really spoken about that. What's your thing?
I like to sing.
You are a singer.
I think I can sing. I'm not saying I'm the best singer in the world, but I do love singing. I've kind of forgotten. I think when you're a parent, I think sometimes you begin to forget yourself sometimes because it's not your main priority sometimes in life. I had a sing song the other day with Daisy and with one of my nieces and things, and it was great. I don't know, it brings a happiness to my soul that I don't always feel. It just sorry, I'm knocking things down here. Just that I would say that's the main thing. Like pre-lockdown, I was playing badminton a little bit when I was a little bit healthier. But obviously due to lockdown, there's a lot of things that we can't do. I used to enjoy going swimming, things like that.
You're the service person, the person who, if anybody needs a friend, you're the person they go to. So
absolutely, I would be there for anyone. I would.
Yeah, and you take that very much in your stride, but it's a gift. It really is a gift. Okay, well, I'm Jane. We are both from Scotland.
We should have said that if you can't tell.
This is a really exciting thing for me that so often the church is very American. I think we would all agree with that. Is it's very American, and so there is so many good things going on in the UK just now, and so we've had a wee talk and kind of think, there's some voices here that need to be amplified, and some discussions that we would like to have. So I'm an active temple recommend holding, hoping to keep it Latter-day Saint. I also know that it's complicated and it can be really, really difficult. I am married to a guy who's never been a member of the church and has no intention of being a member of the church. My kids used to come to church. They just don't really care for it much anymore. So we have, my oldest has just joined the army. He's 25. We are about to celebrate our 25th year of marriage. So we've got all of that going on. We have Ronan, who has special needs, learning difficulties and disabilities and things like that going on. He's 22. We have our youngest, until recently, is 15, and now we have a new youngest, my little angel who's joined us, is 14. And so we're an evolving family. We are kind of unorthodox, I guess. Most importantly, my faith is really important. I think I heard someone using the phrase a while back, in the United Kingdom, if you remember the church, you have to really, really want to be Mormon. Like you don't just wander your way there and stay there, right? It's a thing that you have to be kind of focused on doing, because there's not a lot of us, right? It's only a few of us. Yeah. So for me, I don't know, I guess I've just been feeling like, everybody's leaving. That's what it feels like. Yeah,
it definitely is. When you look at our ward alone, I can't speak for other wards and other states and things, but certainly in our ward we've lost so many people, even before the pandemic. I don't know how it's going to look. I know things that some people are going to church just now, not everyone will still feel comfortable enough to go, like, yourself and things, but certainly even prior to lockdown, there were so many people we lost, and some of them are including my family. People who we never thought, looking back, I've never thought I would see the day where certain people in my family would walk away from the church, you know, and it's difficult to see, you know, and now me being one of these people who, you know, I've not said I'm completely never going back, but for now I'm taking a step back because it's what I need to do for me. But yeah, it's definitely difficult to see, and I've said it many times, even prior to lockdown, you know, that and more talking directly for my ward, but also now looking at it as a whole in the UK, Europe, you know, whichever, you know, and I kind of echo what Peter's always saying, you know, that I worry for the church, for the future of the church here, you know, because so many people that we're losing are families with younger children. And if we don't have our younger children leading up to youth, and we've lost a few youth as well, where is the future of the church?
Yeah.
That's quite scary.
Yeah, well, it is. So just to jump in for a second, the Peter that you mentioned is Peter.
Yeah, I was just say Peter, because everyone knows Peter,
right?
Right?
if you don't, you will. We'll put links to so many great things are happening in the United Kingdom at the moment. So we have a great series of podcasts and YouTube videos from Peter Bleakley, who's talking about some concerns that he has. We have some work from Nemo. We have some great works happening in some of the stakes that are being led out. And it's just a really exciting time because one of the reasons that we decided to do this is because we talk all the time. Yeah. We one thing you will get, I mean, with you most definitely, I mean, you're very open, you're very vulnerable, you're very honest, and I think that's something that we both try to aim for. And I think those conversations can be very difficult to have in a faith where, I mean, let's face it, I want all my friends to stay. I want the pews to be full of the people that I love, right? But when I look around and I see, okay, you're not there, and the reasons why you tell me that you're not there are not the same reasons that I'm hearing either leaders talking about or leaders addressing. There are these conversations that are either too painful or just that, you know, maybe leaders aren't the people that you're bringing them to. It's that, you know, people are coming to talk to you. They're coming to talk to me. Or we're going to find these online spaces which are starting to crop up all over the place in response to a need that's there. So what I wanted to do was to think about what is unique about the fact that we're in a worldwide church, that we have to remind ourselves so often it's a worldwide church. It was so great that last conference there on the Sunday morning, the whole session was full of voices that were non-white American, that were truly worldwide. And so I thought, you know, we need to bring some of that. We need to amplify the voices that are here. We also, you know, we're living in the 21st century, and I think sometimes we forget that we're not, you know, the things that worked for the pioneers, or for Joseph, for you know, those early saints, even in the 50s and the 80s and the 90s, we're not that church anymore. If we live in church, then, you know, let's talk about what's happening. I feel like the youth, I feel like the young adults, millennials, some of Gen Z are more switched on to what's happening. They're more educated about their faith than any previous generation. So,
I think that's one of the difficult things is that, like, I mean, we kind of touched on a similar subject earlier when we did our live, you know, that the youth of today, again, you know, where is their voice, should I say, you know. We spoke about how that's one of the kind of difficulties that I find is that I can't speak up about the things that I don't agree with in the church, you know, and like you said, we're living in very different times. Things have changed completely now. You know, there is more acceptance now of LGBTQ than there was many, many years ago. You know, I mean, there's still a lot for people to learn. I mean, I'm still learning a lot. I have, you know, family members who are LGBTQ and some are non-binary, etc. And I'm still trying to come to terms with calling that person by the correct pronouns, but they respect that I am trying. I'm trying to learn, you know, and I think I've seen a family member who was greatly affected by, in the church, you know, trying to fight against those feelings they had and things, you know, in the churches, and it really affected them and has been so damaging. And I think if we, what's the word I want to, educated ourselves a bit more rather than still trying to live in the times of years ago, I think the church could be a better, and I say safer place for people, because I feel that for people who are living a different life from what the church would rather see, is that it can be very damaging and very dangerous for those people. Because again, they don't feel they've got the voice, they don't feel they can genuinely, and they try to hide who they are, and it can become very difficult for people.
I mean, that's something that were you to say that, were you to bring that to a church discussion, or to you know, someone who maybe could make a difference, so maybe ward leadership, state leadership, it sounds, those are the conversations that make us quite nervous and frightened as Latter-day Saints.
Yep.
And you know, we were speaking a moment ago about so the work that Peter Bleakley's doing, and Peter's talking in great depth about some real issues. He thinks that, you know, these things are areas of concern to him. Now, I feel really it makes me really uneasy. I feel concerned. I'm like, Peter, you're making me anxious. Could you calm down a bit? Could you maybe soften what you're saying? And
shout it to the world.
Right. And you have that same kind of, and I love that you have that same kind of energy and passion. I want to be gentle. I want to, you know, so people just want to pitch up to church on a Sunday and just be spiritually fed and you know, trying to wake everyone up. And Peter was sort of, you know, his response to, you know, me asking, could we not calm it down a little bit? It's like, well, you know, if I'm saying this feels really uncomfortable, he's like, well, yeah, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. This is what it's supposed to be like. And so because of that, I can sort of like, okay, I'm supposed to be, well, that makes it different. That means I can feel uncomfortable. I can consider what you're saying. I can, you know, completely disagree with you, or I can think, hey, you've got a point, or whatever it is, but it will start making me think. So when you say about people not having a voice, that sounded to me like quite a, you know, that's something that if you said that to a leader, you know, they'd be like, oh, Alana, where are you coming from with that?
I think for me specifically, like obviously pre-lockdown, you know, we spoke in great length how I really feel I don't have a voice, and I still feel that way. But I'm starting to, as I hear other people speaking out a little bit more, I'm starting to feel like if I just sit back and do nothing, nothing's going to change. You know, I might be one person, but what is there not a term or a saying that people say that one person's enough to change the world? You know, I might be one person, but there's also other people out there who, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm going to go out like, wow, you know, like, but I just feel that maybe if I think actually Peter said this, that, you know, if enough of us start to speak up and say, you know, sure, it might have been Peter, it might not have been, it could have been someone else, you know, surely they've got to listen. You know, I think, you know, I'm not saying that I want to change everything about the church, all the doctrine, but I just think that there does need to be quite a substantial change for the future of the church. Or like I said, I don't believe there is going to be a future of the church. I've totally sidetracked from what initially I was saying now.
No, I hear where you're going, and I love it. I think for me, I haven't even gone down the road of, do I think things need to change? That's I mean, maybe that's something that I could talk about and explore in, you know, in future podcasts. What we're planning to do is have lots of people, lots of voices to come on and share their experiences and what things they love and what life is like as a Latter-day Saint for them. For me, it's not necessarily even that change needs to happen. I just haven't gone down that road of thought. What does really, really worry me is the fact that you don't feel heard. That's the consequence of you not feeling that you have a voice, is that nobody's listening then. And so when you have pain, or when you speak about the family member who, you know, has experienced pain, trauma, whatever that looks like, it's my job as someone who made a covenant to be able to mourn with you and comfort you, that I can't do that job if I'm not listening to you. Now, we've been friends for a really long time, and you know, if you are engaged in any form with the church, that's a really positive thing, right? Unless it isn't, in which case, you know, you have to, that's a totally different discussion, and we talk about what's best for your mental health and for your life.
Absolutely.
However, if your goal is to be engaged with the church, then there are a few things I need to know in order to, you know, to be someone who can support you to do that. Why are you, I'm here to listen. It's not even necessarily that I need things to change, but often we're sharing opinions in church, and we don't know the people that we're talking about. Now, when you and I talk about our friends are leaving, our family are leaving, each one of those people have a name. When we talk about LGBTQ people, their families, we know their names. They have names. These are not other people. So I feel like we need to talk. One thing I am just really aware of is that whenever people talk together, it's really hard for people to change their minds. People get really set in their ways and concrete.
Absolutely. And I do understand that to a certain level.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens, and that's a wonderful thing. And if the person who's changing our hearts is ideally is going to be Jesus, that you know, if he is ultimately the person in charge and the Spirit's doing its job, then you know it's great that we can sit in that space and just be connected and together and love each other. However, I think the bare minimum that I am praying for, because it really is the whole project is the prayer of my heart, is that we can start listening, that we can start then understanding who our neighbour is, therefore how we can minister to them. And if I know, then I'm accountable. If I know what your pain is, then I am accountable to make sure that how I live reflects, you know, that I know that you're in pain. And so I'm going to have to adjust my, you know, do I have to be more compassionate? Do you need me to do something? Can I hold your hand in this pain and not just act like everything's normal because everything's great for me? I cannot be sitting next to someone who's in pain while I'm sitting oblivious and all is well in Zion. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, going back to earlier, the discussion we had, you know, about people being in pain, and when we were talking about, you know, people who don't want to try and see, you know, other things or see what's really going on for people, you know, again, I call it the kind of tunnel vision, which I was probably one of those people at one point.
We all,
you know, I think everyone could possibly say, you know, if you've grew up in the church and things, that you kind of had that tunnel vision, because it's
and we probably still do in certain areas,
you know, but obviously I've kind of felt that a lot of things now that I feel like, I feel like my eyes have been opened a bit more, just to see where things do need to maybe, you know, be more focused on. But I guess the point I was trying to get to was, I think, you know, that even when we have this tunnel vision, we can still empathise with people. We spoke about this earlier. We can still allow that person to feel validated, you know. That was an important point that we spoke about earlier, that I feel that I need to kind of bring up again, is that, you know, and like you say, you know, you said we don't have to agree, you know. I might not have the exact same opinion that you have, I might feel completely differently, but does it mean that what you're feeling is wrong? Does it mean that what I feel is wrong? No, we have different opinions, we have different views on things, but can we still have those views, still be friends, still feel validated in how we feel? You know, because again, I shared an experience where someone in my family, you know, has a lot of pain, a lot of things going on regarding church, and you know, there's a kind of heated discussion going on, and that person was made to feel that they were wrong, that how dare they think that, you know, and that saddened me to see that pain in real life. Like, I was there when it was happening, and it really got me thinking, and it also got the person thinking in my family who was part of that, to realise that they were kind of wrong, and the fact that they were so set in their opinion or what they believed that was right without thinking about how that was affecting the other person, and how, and as I say, they gave a great talk on that, where they did say that, you know, we really should make people feel validated in how they feel, because that's how they feel. But does it mean that we're right because we have a difference of opinion?
Yeah.
You know,
are we the church of always having to be right? Is that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. I feel like if the world would agree that I am right and would do everything my way, everything would be fine.
We talk about this all the time, right?
Because we're right. However, you know, it hurts. It bumps up against me when, you know, someone's telling me something I don't like to hear. It sounds cliche, doesn't it? But it does require a certain amount of humility. We try to reflect it at home. If there's something I can be doing better, then I would really like to know what that is. And I would really love to be in a place where I can hear that. And sometimes we think we're in a place where we can hear that, but we're still not hearing. And this is the beautiful symbolism of what Jesus was able to do, to, you know, to make people, you know, to give people the ability to see, to give people the ability to hear. I always come back to the fact that for me, it's complicated, you know, that I don't have to have this all or nothing view of any aspect of the gospel. And I reserve the right to change my mind if I have to. But I think if the core point or the invitation from the church is to come unto Christ, these images of outstretched arms, can people do that? Can people come to Christ when they are feeling, you know, before you can even get there, you're feeling judged, or you're feeling like I can't come to Christ because I'm wrong, or I'm sinful, or I'm being taught these things about myself. Whatever that looks like, there is no space for you here. You can come to Christ if you come fixed. You can come to Christ if you come, not sinless, but certainly not anything.
Yeah, well, who doesn't sin? You know, everyone does.
Nothing big. You can't come to Christ presenting big.
No.
And so I guess that's one of my concerns, is that can we find Christ in our church? It's such a simple invitation, but can we? Is Christ in our church? Now, I really believe that I can, but I also know that everybody doesn't get to have that same experience. I've never walked into church and not felt welcomed, but I know that everybody doesn't get to have that experience. And I know that they're going to continue to have, people will continue to have extreme experiences on either end of the scale. Jesus, I think, ministers in that part of the scale where people aren't feeling welcomed and aren't feeling loved. That's what his business is. So therefore, that makes it my business. That makes the stories, the people, their needs, my business, right? Yep. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about, in case people haven't picked up, Alana and I are very good friends. we're very good friends, and we have been for a really long time. One of the things that I really like over the past while, since you haven't been coming to church, keep in mind we're in pandemic time.
Yeah. So
no one is coming to church. But one of the things I've enjoyed watching is seeing how less hard on yourself you've become. Could you talk a little bit about that, about how?
Yeah, so I guess throughout my life, there are various reasons for that. I'll not go into detail. There's things in my life that have allowed me to feel low on myself and not have a lot of self-confidence and belief in myself. I am working hard and have been for 2 years to try and change that. Still long way to go. But yeah, a lot of my feelings and difficulties that I have in church is the feeling of not feeling good enough. Because again, and I totally understand, because it tends to be mostly from the older generation. You know, people who have ministered to me, or, you know, when it was, I've totally blanked, like when it was home teaching, visiting teaching, you know, my home teachers. And I love this home teacher with all my life, you know, but with all my heart, sorry, I meant to say. But again, you know, it always came back to, you know, if you're having a hard time or something's not going right in your life, are you reading your scriptures? Are you praying? Are you? Now, anyone who knows me knows how much I struggle with scripture reading. And then I guess, being completely honest, the difficulties is the language. I struggle with the reading of the language, because it's not like, you know, my little girl's storybook that I have here, that's so easy to read and I can totally understand it. Now, I'm not saying that we have to completely understand all of everything in the scriptures, but I do struggle with that. I also struggle with prayer, and there are many reasons for that, and I always have done. I pray in my own way. When I say I struggle with prayer, I struggle with the formalities of prayer, on your knees, you know, addressing all the we thank thee, we ask thee. So yeah, like a lot of times in church, like when people are saying this, but are you reading? You know, if you're not reading, you can't this, or you know, you can't feel this, or you can't. So I then began to feel not enough. I felt like I wasn't doing enough, you know, because I'm not your typical, like, I'm not great and haven't been, you know, I am not the most organised person in life. You know, I can start doing one thing and then jump to another. And so I wasn't the best at teaching my little girl the gospel from home. You know, we didn't necessarily do family prayer or family home evening. And again, various reasons for that. But because of all of these things, I then became very, very hard on myself, that I was not a good person, that I was not doing what Jesus Christ needed me to do, that I wasn't going to go to the celestial kingdom. You know, I started feeling all of these things because I just did not feel I was doing all the, I call it the checklist. I wasn't doing the checklist things that the church sees that we should be doing. But over the last, I mean, I don't know, would you say year and a half, 2 years, maybe longer, you know, through speaking with Jane, and Jane always helps me to see it from a different perspective, you know, and has allowed me and helped me to not be so hard on myself, and to realise that there's so much more. For me, I realised there's so much more to church than just the checklist things. You know, I would say, I'm always afraid to use the word Mormon now because we're not supposed to.
No, because Mormonism is a big umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, you know, like, there's different ways to Mormon, and I think that's something, you know, we get from Sunstone and things like that, is people Mormon are, you know, in different ways. And I think I've come to realise for myself that I might not do the checklist things, but I do so much more. Oh. I do, and I kind of spoke about this a little earlier, and I don't like to blow my own trumpet. I don't like to, because it's just not me. But the example that I gave was, you know, that I love people. I love people unconditionally. I love people regardless of what walk of life they come from. You know, I don't, I mean, everyone to a certain degree judges people. You don't always mean to, but, you know, but I don't judge people's life choices. You know, like if someone was an alcoholic, I would not like them because they're an alcoholic. I wouldn't have respect for them because they're an alcoholic, you know, things like that. And I think, you know, if I know there's a need, if I can do anything to help that need, I'm the first to drop everything and run. Like, I've done it so many times, and I've even dropped my little girl off to someone to go and help someone else. And for me, I feel that's my way of being a Mormon, is because I love people. I try to be Christ-like with people. Not saying I get it right all the time, I absolutely don't. But I don't worry so much now about what can I come to mind just now. You know, I always remember people saying, you know, if Jesus Christ had to come to your door right now, would you welcome them in? And that used to put the fear in me. You know,
I remember you saying this.
Yes, fear in me, because I'm thinking, I'm not the tidiest. I don't live in a dirty house, but I'm not the most organised. I'm not the tidiest of people. I try my best to keep on top of it, you know. And I used to think, oh my goodness, look at my house. But do you know, see now, I think I would welcome him in, because he knows what I am. He knows who I am. He knows all my flaws. He knows that I'm not living in a spot. He already knows that I'm living in a spotless house. You know, he already knows, you know, that I have things that I don't. He knows that I don't read my scriptures. He knows that I don't pray. So why would I came to realize that why would I be anyone other than who I am?
Yeah.
Just because my Saviour walks through the door, because he knows who I am.
Yeah. And
so
I love
what, you
that.
know, it's,
yeah,
but I really had
love,
to, it took me time, but I've really had to learn that I need to stop feeling not good enough, because I am good enough.
and I think it's quite funny that even, you know, even the way that you phrased that is it was a church thing that we used to say to, yeah, we need to stop
absolutely.
feeling not good enough, like it's another thing on the checklist.
Yep.
But you know, being honest, when you would talk about that feeling with anyone who was supporting you in any way at church, anyone who is ministering to you, so whether you're home teachers or ministering sis, whoever's appeared over the years, they recognizing that you have this, I mean, it is a spiritual gift. I mean, I can recognize it as like the way that you serve is you just naturally have this gift. And so, and you will tell people, you would tell people that you would have these feelings of not being enough or not being good enough or not doing enough. And their answers were generally, you know, very supportive, you know, reminding you that you're wonderful and that you're a daughter of God and look at the wonderful job you do with your child. And yet, why didn't it help? Why wasn't it helping?
That's a good question.
I'll tell you why, in my opinion, because I'll just answer the question I asked you. I think it's
but I think sometimes when you're put in the spot like that, it takes a few minutes to really process and think what the question being asked is.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think that when people were supporting you, they would be supporting you with a goal, with another part of the checklist, not consciously realizing you're doing it. So it would be, you know, you are of incredible worth, you're a daughter of God, look at all this wonderful stuff that you're doing, you naturally serve, we all love you, you must know this. But, you know, if you could just pray more or you could just read your scriptures more, then you would feel that too.
That fixes everything.
Tell me why it doesn't. Tell me why. Let's if there are people listening who, because it's an easy thing to say, and for a lot of people that's the answer. Well, I mean, it's the Sunday school answer. Mm-hmm. If we were to get honest, why is that a really tough thing?
Well, I think there's some things in life that it's not just as easy as that. You know, there's some things that have happened in my life, and you know, I may at a later date talk about that. You know, I quite openly talk about it now, whereas before I couldn't. But there's certain things in life that you can't just flick that switch of reading your scriptures and praying and doing all the things that you need to do to be able to fix that in life. You know, I understand that the Saviour, you know, died for us and took all our pains and aches, and I know that he has felt the pain that I feel, and there is still pain there right now. But I think if it was just as easy as that for certain things, wouldn't we all be doing it more? You know, I think sometimes it's not always the quick fix.
Yeah.
So
if
it was as easy as that, wouldn't we all be doing it more? You know, I just think that sometimes there's a process for things, you know, and there's a time for things. And, you know, there was a time, I mean, I served a mission for the church, and I still say to this day, I wouldn't change that for the world. It was one of the best, it was at the start one of the worst experiences, but one of the best experiences of my life due to homesickness and various things. But I came to love the people. I served, I did what I did best, and I love people. Was I the best missionary? Did I obey all the rules? No, absolutely not. But it was a time in my life I wouldn't change. But, you know, that there's a process and a time for things. And I think it's hard for me sometimes to put into words what I'm really thinking. But I guess if life was so easy, like, I kind of feel that sometimes people say, but if you read your scriptures, if you pray, and I don't think people mean it this way, but I feel like when they say this, that your life will be easy, your life will be simple. Like, I'm not saying they say that in those words, but I sometimes get that's the feeling that people are trying to say, that if you do these things will be easier in life.
I agree. But I think you say it in a way that it does acknowledge, look, we're not saying it's a magic wand. We're not saying it'll make things easy, but it'll help. You know, this is, and they, while they're on one hand saying it won't take it away, it kind of feels a little bit, if you're saying I can't feel worth, And their answer is, you have worth, also read your scriptures.
Yeah. Or just give it to the Saviour. That's another thing. They'll just give it to him, you know, and I think sometimes these are just little, you know, just a cliche off the tongue answers that people sometimes don't really think of the impact of saying these things can have on people. I know all these things. I was raised in the church. As I say, I was in and out the church, you know, kind of as I got older. I was there, I was not there. I was, you know, testing the water here, testing the water there. But I just think that sometimes we really need to think before we speak. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sometimes sitting and saying to a person, just give me a few moments to think about that, because I've had so many people and leaders who have just said something off the bat and it's been more damaging to me than good.
Oh,
because
yes.
they've not, now you know, because I go to Jane with everything. Jane knows pretty much my life, things that I have difficulties with. And I think, and I can learn from that too, because I sometimes do it even with friends, you know, they'll be talking to someone, I'll just like, da, 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 and then I think, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that. You know, so I'm not saying this because I'm criticising our leaders or criticising people, because we are human. But I just think sometimes that we maybe need to just stop and think for a minute or two. Is this going to be helpful to say this to this person? Is it going to make it worse for them? You know, and I don't think for a minute the people who have said these things that have upset me, or the way they've said it, have meant it. I think if they knew the pain that it caused me and the damage, I would like to think that they would think, oh, you know, they would really think about it.
Just to sort of, because we have a whole series to go of interviews with lots of different people, and as you know, I'm looking forward to being able to dig into your story more. But it is worth saying that what we're talking about is your experience of, you know, not just people saying things that are a little bit offensive or insensitive. You know, it's some things that are very problematic and very, very unkind, to the point where when people have to start asking themselves, not just you, this is a common thread, is this even a church where Jesus is? Because I'm not feeling Jesus here. I'm feeling all of these opinions, and I'm feeling this you know, absolute unkindness. How can we reconcile that with the things that we're teaching? Because I'm not seeing what we're being taught. And I think when it comes to praying and reading the scriptures, I think it can be said as a bit of a platitude, that I can recognize insincerity in it when I hear people say that to others. Now, like, I'm a geek. I will pull out my scripture. I'll have a read it.
You're a swot, complete swot.
I am. Listen, do you know what? I will take that, right?
I'm just jealous because I used to read when I was younger. I loved it, but again, due to mental health and things, like my concentration for reading is not great.
But I think those are the times that we need to think about. So the times when I have had depression, where nothing can go in, I mean, literally, I couldn't hold a book, never, you can read a sentence, never mind anything else. Some people treat the Book of Mormon like, if you just have it there and maybe just, you know, there it is, and sort of magically we're getting the vibes. And it's even better if you open it and just, you know, something. I mean, reading the Book of Mormon, it's good. Enjoy reading the Book of Mormon. Get something out if you can read the Book of Mormon, but also don't beat yourself up about the Book of Mormon. It's not supposed to be used like that. It just isn't. If you are connecting with the divine and you're struggling to pray, if you're struggling to read, you know, there are so many creative ways that you can feel the Savior in your day.
Absolutely.
And where I see God work in your life, and that this is why I get really insulted whenever, you know, you are doing all these things and you come back having had what you'd hoped would be a really uplifting conversation with someone that you love from church, good people, and you feel a little bit brokenhearted because you have been out doing all of these things to help other people. Because when you hear someone's story, when you're with someone, when you're listening to them, part of your gift, and part of, I mean, I suppose it's pain as well, is that you really feel it. I mean, you feel it in your soul. You're experiencing that. Now that's hard. That's a heavy thing to bear.
I always say that it's a great gift to have, but it can be very draining and things like that. I wouldn't change it because I love the fact that I can feel for other people. And it is, again, a whole other subject. It is something that's in my patriarchal blessing, which I wasn't ever sure if I really truly believed these, but the person that gave me a patriarchal blessing didn't really know me that well. And he based in my patriarchal blessing, it clearly states that you have a compassion or something to feel for others and what they go through. And it is so true of me,
But when you're out doing something that to do something that is so it's a gift from God. It's a Christ-like gift, and for you to do that, to be with people in their moment, not try and fix them, not try and offer, the platitudes. You mourn with them, you comfort them, and you're offering practical support, whatever in whatever way is appropriate. But you also need to pray, and you also need to read your scriptures. And I think, and you never ever looked at it like, oh, they want me to do more. But that. So yeah, the not reading your scriptures thing, it's not always super helpful. And in the same way, I think, as we wouldn't say to someone who's depressed, oh, cheer up.
Pull your socks up. All the things that used to be said years ago. I think the difficult thing is, and I always say, it would be worse if, well, not worse, but if I wasn't reading my scriptures and I was away reading all these other books, but I just don't read. I'm not a reader, haven't been for many years, and again, I do struggle with it, but I've came to realise that that's okay. I still have certain things that I remember from the Book of Mormon, certain little passages that I love. And again, I'm not saying that I will never ever pick up my scriptures again. It's accessible on your phone, it's accessible, I've got the copies upstairs.
But it's not a guilt you need to carry about anymore.
But I just realised that I need to stop feeling guilty for that, because it was a guilt that was dragging me down. It was making... Obviously, again, it's more things in my life that happened that caused me to get to the point of, at one point in my life not wanting to be here. But there was also that big guilt of not feeling good enough. That part of that did come from, being raised in the church. And I have to be honest with that some of that did come from that, because you don't feel you're doing enough a lot of the time. And again, that's where sometimes I think we need to relook at things and relook at, again, how damaging some things that we say in the church and some things that we portray to people can really damage people rather than help them.
And I think that when you are a member of the church in a tiny ward and a tiny town, and I mean, Scotland isn't massive, the United Kingdom isn't massive, so when you're a member of the church here, people will talk about the dedication and the commitment, and there is that, but there's that sort of core, I don't want to say hardcore, because that's not quite what I mean, but that really dedicated, devoted, this is how we are living, and that's fantastic. But I think it also it means that if you're not that, then you're not there. Then you're going to leave the church. If you're not, 1,000,000% in and engaged and working, so people get burnt out here. People, you look at others and think you're doing it wrong. There's just a bit less sort of perspective sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I say, I've only had great experiences. We have a lovely wee ward.
No, absolutely. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think, I know obviously, like, of recent years, they've been changing a lot of things, because I go back to the time, when my dad was bishop. I don't, again, due to my memory and things like that, things of my past that have allowed me to lose a lot of my memories from my past. My dad was bishop, for a number of years. And I don't have any resentment of that. But some of my siblings who no longer attend church really resent the time that my dad had to spend being bishop and not being around his family and getting called out at all hours and various things. And I know that now, it was all the meetings you had, then you had other classes on during the week. And I know that they're truly trying to come away from that now, from the time spent. But, what I used to conduct the music in our ward for quite a while. And And I just remember sitting up there and looking out at so many people, and so many people just looked exhausted. And people often talk about the light in people's eyes, and I'm not saying that they didn't have the light of Christ in them, but I just thought people look so exhausted, and that's because it is hard work, especially for people who are in those positions of being a bishop or being a Relief Society president. You forget sometimes what goes on behind the scenes. You just see them coming in a Sunday, but there's so much more to that. And I think, like you say, sometimes people can start to feel burnt out by things, and that's why I guess I appreciate that they are trying to change that so that people are more at home with their families and spending time, because I think, I'm not saying it would completely change how my siblings feel about church, but some of that was a big part of resentment that one of my brothers have to the church, is that his dad wasn't around for those number of years because he was always out at meetings. He was always having to run and go and support somebody who was in need. And a lot of that was taken away from him. So I think that's been good to kind of see that change, where people are not necessarily required. Obviously, a bishop is a different calling altogether. There sometimes is a need for a bishop to drop and go when it's needed, kind of thing. But obviously, it's not so many meetings, it's not so many things on through the week. I didn't realise until a while back that even on a Sunday it was spread out throughout the day, all the different meetings you had to go to. I'm like, that's crazy. I couldn't cope with that.
It is crazy though, we never hear people say it, that's crazy, and I think that's okay. Just sometimes saying the words and acknowledging what it is, naming it. I think it frees us in so many ways. One of the blessings of being married to someone who's not a member of the church, I mean, we sort of make clear, we are not a broken family. We do not need to be fixed. What I do know is that that sounded so testimony-ish. This is Testimony Sunday. What I do know with every fibre of my being is that where it to be a possibility, that were Charlie to join the church, I genuinely believe that would not happen unless we can be a church prepared to receive Charlie. And at the moment, there are so many, there's so much pain. There's so many things that I think, that I don't know if I just think it would be really hard on our whole family. So I feel kind of blessed that I can hear his perspectives. And I really like the fact that he can call it for what it is. He can name it. So
he's quite blatantly honest, isn't he?
Oh, he'll tease us. He will absolutely rip it right out of us. He'll talk about, like, what, when you guys pray, why do you guys keep praying like that? Like, what are you talking about? It's like you put on your prayer voice and it's like you're in pain, and it goes like, dear Heavenly Father, and we sort of do this thing, and he's like, do you not like God? And I really like that, because we're naming things that we don't necessarily recognize. And what's really important, I think, is we can joke about the quirkiness of it, but also there are things, there are pains, there are experiences that we really need to name and to talk about, so that we are not just a church full of people with opinions that are getting in the way of people being able to come and meet Christ in that space, but that when someone's opinion is that I hurt because I feel there is no place for me, because my gender doesn't reflect my birth, or any of the many things it could be right now, or I don't feel like I have a place as a woman.
I was going to bring that up, Ellen. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. Because when we were talking about, not being heard, and I do feel a big part of that is because I'm a woman. And again, I've had an experience where that was the case, know. And I knew it was because I was a woman, because I was trying to fight for something that needed changed in our building. But because I was a woman, it eventually got done. But it took a lot of time, and I think it's because I'm a woman.
Well, I think I mean, really, the pains that people have are so multitude, and I'm just thinking about those marginalized voices, or those. I mean, sometimes it's wonderful things. Sometimes we don't get to talk about the real joys that we have as well. But you know, I have a son who cannot worship with his local congregation because physically, and you know, supporting a child with learning difficulties, it just proved to be something that we weren't capable of doing. And it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic, the blessings that we miss out on as a ward, and that he misses out on as a person. You know, we don't get to hear enough, other than maybe a couple of nice Ensign articles every now and again, about disabilities, about bereavement, about, you know, what actually happens when we talk about people dying, and about how we can keep this eternal perspective, and we can get all of these positive lessons and joyful funerals. But when it comes to the moment, the mourning is so hard that people can't recover from the pain, or struggle to recover from the pain. You know, sometimes we can just really suck at mourning with whatever that pain is. I think also I would really just like to open up conversations about, you know, the fact that this isn't a really Utah-centric church. Maybe it used to be, but there are more Latter-day Saints out with United Kingdom now. And yet we keep hearing conferences that, you know, we'll talk in very American terms. So the worldwide session was fantastic. You know, I got to admit, I'm listening to the talk about the Constitution, which was fantastic. Thinking, I don't really care about the American Constitution. Alana, how did you enjoy conference this past weekend?
I didn't, because I didn't watch it.
So you did because you didn't watch it? Did you have a good conference weekend?
Yeah, I guess.
It just didn't involve conference.
Again, I think, you know, when I was younger, I used to love going to conference, you know, when it was the sessions, because you got to meet up with everyone and you got to stay for the day and you took your packed lunch. And but my life's different. You know, I have a little one, and it's, you know, Daisy's a live wire. She's always on the move. It's mum this, mum that all the time. But if I'm being blatantly honest, like, it's not something I can say wholeheartedly that I enjoy sitting listening to. Again, over recent years, there's been sometimes things have been said that I struggle with and causes me pain. So I made the decision, along with taking a step back from church at the moment, that I wouldn't watch conference. I usually wait and have you tell me if there's, you know, maybe something, or my mum has in the past, you know, said that there's a little session that I really think. So I think was it a good few years back now, there was a woman speaking, you know, me and names, and you said you really need to listen to this. Yeah, and I was crying, and, you know, I can't remember the talk, but, you know, I think it was talking about being a mum, and, you know, and and things like that. And I loved it. That there are certain times where if someone says to me, you know, I really think you should listen to this, but it's hard, because I know sometimes that there are some good things said, but I struggle, I guess, because I've just seen too much pain now in my own family, through my nieces, nephews, sister, you know, brothers, just like pain, real pain. And that's not the main reason for me stepping back, you know, that I have my very own reasons for that. You know, sometimes a lot of people think, oh, because the rest of the family's going, Alana will just follow suit, you know, but that's not the case, and you know that. You know, I've struggled for so long, even through going to church and feeling the pain that I feel, and wishing that something just needs to change, that people need to feel heard, that we need to listen to the people who are having real pain, you know, because these, and I always like to make sure you understand when I say these people, I'm not using it as a derogatory term or anything, but I say these people because I won't name these people, because it wouldn't be fair to do so, but the people who are leaving because of LGBTQ, and, you know, and family members who are affected by the way their children have been affected, and it becomes a knock-on effect.
And people that we love, people whose names we know, our people. Yep. You know, I'm part of the LGBTQ community. Our youngest wee one is, And while I have had nothing but positive experiences, I know that that's not going to be the experience that my wee one's going to have. And so we have to start having those conversations now. Here are some painful things that you may hear in the context of my religion that you need to know. You are wonderful and we love you and you are perfect. And, you know, we need to make sure that they're being taught really clearly. And, you know, I think it's not even necessarily always about the painful stories. I think sometimes just talking about how, you know, it's not abnormal to say that if you're going to watch, how many hours of conference is it? And if you're a leader in the church, you're going to have even more hours racked up that weekend than most of us. You know, when buildings were opened, when people were going to watch live, so you've got all of that volunteer time. It is hardcore. It is a huge commitment, and it's okay, I think, for people to say, look, that's too much. I'll catch up with it in the ensign, or I'll listen week by week. Now, while I really like watching conference, I haven't always, you know, it's there are times when it's, you know, my kids have needs, you know, real deep needs, or it just takes your internet to go out. I don't think we can beat ourselves up too much if we didn't make conference, but I think it's really important to acknowledge we're a bit weird. The people who do it are sitting watching it. It's not that common, right? So it's okay not to, it's, you know, we don't get to hold up, whether it's reading our scriptures, praying, watching conference. This is the standard that everyone needs to attain to. I will joke, I mean, you've heard me joke about doing something or watching a conference that this will get me extra celestial points. And I'll joke about it all the time. Let's do a podcast for some extra celestial points. You know, and I'm joking because we don't get extra celestial points for going to conference. What it might do is, you know, is help me in other ways as I go throughout my life that may do things that, I don't know, will I earn celestial points because of something I learned in conference? Maybe, I don't know. But that's between me
who actually knows who actually knows? You know, we're taught all these things that we need to do to get into the celestial kingdom. But
and there's you serving
who fully knows?
Being like Jesus.
Will I be kicked out of the celestial kingdom because I don't read my scriptures, because I don't pray?
Well, if I am sitting next to you and I have been reading my scriptures and it comes down to that one thing, I'm going to be like, no, Jesus, I was reading, I did the assignment. Can I just say?
But Jesus, I serve people, I love people.
Why does she always get me in that one, Jesus?
I really doesn't. But you do too. You do too, though. You do in your own way. You might not be able to be out there doing the things that I do, but you are there for people. And for me, certainly, you're always a listener. The thing I love about you is you always see when there's a need. You always know. Like I swear Jane's got a sixth sense when it comes to me, because she always knows when I'm not right. Sometimes she sees that I'm not okay before I myself see that I'm not okay. And sometimes I dislike you for it because I don't want to hear it.
Because she loves me. Well, I guess really to sort of put a fine point then on what we're saying is, if we can bring our honesty, our vulnerability, and have conversations that reflect the nature of a worldwide church in the 21st century, the fact that the people who are members of the church, who are in this generation that's sort of, you know, that the millennials, we're the end of Gen Z, right? We're
you remember when you first spoke about this to me? I had no clue what you were talking about.
Well, basically, okay, so we sneak in under the cool wire. We just make cool, so we're all right. I guarantee we're all right. But the younger ones, they are on fire. They know their stuff. And we cannot kid them. We cannot fake it. We cannot act like everything is all right when it isn't. would you share would you share your story of Daisy and the Tooth Fairy?
Oh, yeah.
Remembering that Daisy's 8, people.
Well, she's 8 in 6 weeks. She's 8 in 6 weeks. So Daisy, I always say isn't a typical wee girl. She's not one. She did go through a phase of playing with dolls and things, but Daisy just loves iPads, watching YouTube, she loves playing Roblox. She likes playing games and things like that on her iPad. She doesn't have the same enjoyment playing with toys and things like that the way that some kids do. I think to be honest, it's a generational thing. You know, kids are on devices nowadays, which is so many people see as a bad thing. But you know, they still learn. You know, if I thought Daisy wasn't learning from it, I wouldn't allow her the time on it. But anyway, she had lost a tooth a little while back. And she has questioned it for some time, but I've always got away with saying, no, of course she's really, you know, I'm sleeping. I don't, sorry, I did say earlier, if you have a child listening with you, turn it off now. Turn it off now.
Children,
warning. So then she had lost a tooth, and obviously on that day, what did she? Have I got this wrong? Did she Google the Tooth Fairy or did she Google the Easter Bunny? I feel like it was Easter Bunny, but I could be talking rubbish. Anyway, Daisy took it upon herself. Mum, I'm just going to Google to find out if it's real. And whatever it was she Googled, whether it is a Tooth Fairy real, it then told her that the Easter Bunny wasn't real, that Santa Claus wasn't real. And I'm like, for goodness sake, you know, I wasn't even thinking at 7 years of age or 8 years of age about going onto a tablet or a computer and Googling these things, you know, but it's so easily accessible now. And I'm even thinking, how is she even thinking about this at this age? Like,
right?
She's just too smart sometimes.
She
you know,
Googled the Easter Bunny. She Googled
and I'm
Easter
still trying to say to her, oh, Google talks rubbish. It doesn't always tell the truth. Sometimes it tells, you know. But then I realised she isn't as daft as, you know, we think. And you know, as I said, I've got one of my cousin's little girls who's on the autistic spectrum who's like, I told you, Daisy, I told you it wasn't real. I told you it was your mum or dad that put the money under your pillow. So, you know, they just say it like it is. And you know, she's a bit older. She's almost 12. And so it gets harder to cover it up. And then I think, you know, I see some people who sometimes say, but you're lying to your children when you tell them all these things are real. But I don't see it as a lie. I'm at the stage
in this house.
I'm at the stage just now where she did say to me in a later conversation and at a later date, Mum, are you telling me the truth? Please, can you tell me the truth? And I feel at that stage, I can't say no, I am, because I would be lying. And I teach my daughter, you know, there's no secrets ever from Mum. We don't tell lies. It doesn't matter what anyone says. You always tell Mum the truth. You always tell Mum what's happening in your life, you know. So can I really, if she's begging me and pleading me to say, please, can you tell me the truth? Do I really lie to her just for the sake of that magical moment?
And I think that's one example of a child who's being raised in a home where, you know, you're involved in the church. When you have some involvement in the church, you're rocking up to primary on the Sunday, and on the Wednesday you're Googling all of these truth claims. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, and I know we're teasing, you know, sort of about, you know, like Google being, you know, for the kids, Google's a load of rubbish, but those are the messages we can hear in conference too. And so when a young adult, when we have every piece of information that can possibly be digitally transmitted, every people's thoughts, people's ideas, and they are all connecting and through the internet, a web of thought and idea, and we have the benefit of accessing that today. More education than we can ever possibly take into ourselves, but we expect our kids not to ask those types of hard questions. So I mean, I just think we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for those conversations. We need to be prepared for kids who are talking about things that we have not you know, thought about in Sunday school class, that we're just, you know.
I think the thing for me, obviously now, you know, years ago it wasn't the kind of thing that was spoken about. You know, when I was younger, we weren't taught about a lot of things, you know, especially not about, you know, LGBTQ and things. For Daisy, it has been a little different. Daisy has had to have an understanding of that from a bit of a younger age, because one of her best friends at school, her mum is, married to a woman. And I talk about that to Daisy, and I say, and that's fine. That is not a problem. That's okay. I've made it seem normal to her in life. It's not, the way that other people would maybe portray it.
Because it is, yeah.
Well, absolutely. That I'm not saying I've made it seem. I don't mean I
No,
sometimes say things without realising what I'm saying.
But it's important to recognise that when we talk about it in the gospel.
You think when we were younger, if we seen two women walking hand in hand in the street, you would be kind of looking like, but Daisy will just walk by people quite naturally, her doing that, because, she's been taught it from a young age, she's experienced it. It's and like I spoke about earlier, Daisy, now I genuinely believe she's saying this because one of my niece's little girls, she heard one of my nephews saying that her little cousin doesn't believe in God. But I'm okay with her exploring that. She told me just a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even a month or so ago, that, Mum, I don't believe there is a God. Now most parents would be like, I say most parents, I shouldn't label people that way. But people would probably, but there is a God, and I believe in God, and I still emphasise that to her, and I say I do believe in God, I do believe in Jesus Christ, but that's okay if you don't, because who am I to force my beliefs on my child? It's she's been going to church since, me in timescales. What age was Daisy when I started kind of attending church? She was definitely under 2, and she might even have been under a year and a half. So, she's been going to church for a while, and so she has an understanding. She's been taught about God, she's been taught about Jesus. And that's, again, where it kind of scares me a little bit, because kids are learning younger and younger, and they're having their own ideas younger and younger. And like you say, the younger generation are going to be the ones who are going to be like, but this isn't right, this isn't okay. Whereas we, in this middle-ish age that I say, who have been, obviously I've been raised in the church differently, I feel I can't ask these questions, I can't push this on people, and I feel like I want to get to a place, we spoke about it, because you said to me, why do you feel at this time you were, you felt the need to come back to church? I guess my priorities changed. I had a little girl, and my life priorities changed. But you also kind of said to me, do you ever wonder if it's because you're needed here to be the voice? And I've thought a lot about that since you've asked me that. And at the time I was like, well, no, not really, because you can't have a voice in the church. But through hearing other people's experiences, and like I say, through hearing Peter Bleakley and other people who I know within the church who are now speaking out a little bit, I think maybe I can have that voice. Might not be in the walls of the church, sitting in the congregation, but doing things like this, and whether people in my ward building hear this or not, I don't know. But I'm being honest, I'm being vulnerable right now, which I normally would never put myself in that position to feel vulnerable. But this kind of thing is my safe space, because I'm not having to sit with people all around about me who could say this or could say that. I can put my views across, and I wouldn't ever like to think that I would do it in a disrespectful manner. This is the belief that I've been raised in. This is a belief that still many of my friends, some of my family, my parents still, I say attend church, but I mean, Zoom calls and things like that. So I don't ever want to be disrespectful against what other people believe or what they see. But I just sometimes would like to think that, maybe people can just listen to my views of, this is how, I'm one voice in a world of how many people in the church. I couldn't tell you what the numbers are just now, but I feel that I need to maybe start being that one voice who says, these are the things that I struggle with, but not only me, there are so many other people who have had that same experience, and many of them have walked away from the church. What can we do to try and fix this and stop people from walking away from the church? For now, I've stepped back from the church. I'm not saying I will never go back. For now, I won't. But what can I still feel right now? Like, I mean, when you had asked me about this, I was a bit like, I kind of, because the anxiety kicked in. It was like, what if my bishop hears this? What if, someone hears this and feels differently about me? But I then had to realise that I'm not doing this for them directly. It's to help so many people, and it's to hopefully have people listen to the difficulties that people are having in 2021 within the church. And obviously, we're not going to sit and solely focus on constant negative things. You know, we want to bring positivity to it. But I'd like to think, you know, the things I am talking about, that I'm trying to make it positive and not be like, this is wrong and we need to change this. And, you know, one of our guests who's coming on, like, I'm so excited for that.
Tell everyone about our guest. Tell everyone just now all about our guest.
Well, I don't know if I can tell you all about him. I see him on Facebook. I see a lot of the good he does. I don't know huge amounts about him. So we are going to have, do we say Papa? Richard Osler.
Papa Osler.
Papa Osler, who's going to come on. What is the date for that?
That's this Friday.
This Friday.
At 5 p.m. UK time. So we
UK
will
time.
We will put the time zones up.
But he is absolutely amazing. I actually heard of him through my nephew, who had told me to follow him on Facebook. Now, I'm not going to lie, I haven't followed him hugely. Like, I keep an eye on what he's doing, but he's just amazing. You know, he's all for our LGBT community, and he just does amazing things. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about him when he does, the show on Friday. But I'm so excited to just hear his views on life in the church, where he is, I guess, advocating, isn't he, for those people out there who feel they can't maybe advocate or have a voice for themselves.
I think as our first guest, it's going to be really exciting, because Richard Osler doesn't necessarily talk about let's change everything, let's burn the house down and start again. He's talking about, no, well, look, here's what we could do right now. This is what we can do right now. Here's some things, and here's some possibilities. And I really like that. And I think that's what, that's what you do. I guess, when we're talking about how, the perception of speaking, you could feel like this during a Sunday school class. I've seen you loads of times after a gospel doctrine class where you've thought, do I say the thing? Or maybe you say the thing and you feel quite anxious about it, or or maybe times when you've brought a concern to a church leader and it's done with, because you speak with passion, so it's done with the passion of your whole soul, but it's also respectful and loving. It's a lovely thing, and to feel that not be respected, that's painful. With, I think what we can do is, I think if this church means anything to us, if we are really the people who have been here for 20, 30 plus years, and we meant a single word that we say, then we have to take this seriously. We have to take our brothers and sisters seriously. And at the moment, it kind of feels like we have to quarantine that, Alana, if you're feeling like church is maybe not for you right now, then I don't really want to hear what you're thinking. Whereas what I'm finding is the opposite is true, that it's made it more easy for you to come to church when we talk. Or you can make decisions about what's right for you when you're able to speak to what is, what's going on in your heart. And I think that if other people are feeling like they could honestly be themselves, that they could honestly, can you imagine that when we say we want you to come back to church, that we're imagining everybody's going to come back and it's all going to look the same way as it did in whenever, the early 60s, the 80s, the 90s, whenever your heyday was of the church, that everyone will come and sit back and the testimonies are going to look the same way that they used to. What if people are going to come back? The people that we love, the new people that we meet, at the moment, it's not looking very likely, but let's say miracles happen and they come back bringing all of the things that they've learned with them. And we are sitting in the pew next to someone who maybe doesn't believe that the Book of Mormon is literal. And that's okay. And what if the person just a bit further down is living in a same-sex marriage? What if the person a little bit further down is going to keep on drinking alcohol and does not see why you keep on, what if we can have, now I'm not advocating and saying that, it's okay, go drink, guys. I want to see a whole load of people drinking alcohol, but I'm saying, what if we took away those barriers and people came back to church with the ability to come to Christ in their own time, in their own way, and we didn't have to have that uniformity of thought?
Yeah, I think that would be amazing, and I often say,
terrifying.
again, I think we talked about this earlier, is sometimes the guilt that comes with doing these things, and I think a lot of the time, certainly in my part, that a lot of the time that's what has caused me to walk away from the church again, because I do something, I feel such a guilt about it, because it's, you can't hold a temple recommend if you've done that. You can't hold a calling if you've done that. And so you carry this guilt with you. And that was, looking back, I can honestly say that was a big part of a lot of the times why I walked away from church, because I carried such a guilt. But wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to feel that guilt, if we could just sit there and know that we're working through what we're working through, but we still love Christ. We still want him in our lives. We still want to worship the way that everyone else does, without carrying that guilt, without looking around thinking people are judging me because they know I'm sitting in a seat and they know I still drink, but I'm coming to church.
So if Heavenly Father is, if the Spirit prompts me that I need to, or even let's say a church leader, if there's something in my life that I need to fix, keep in mind, one, I cannot fix that by myself. That is going to require the atonement. So I'm going to need Jesus for this. That's the first thing. The person who's going to make those changes and help me to come to him to make those changes, that's me and Jesus. It's not going to happen through community pressure. It's not going to happen because there's this look of conformity. I don't know how the church looks like worldwide, but whenever we walk into our congregation now, we are in what's called a social deprivation area. There's a lot of poverty in the central belt of Scotland, real stratification of wealth, and we are right in the middle of a deprived area. There's food banks around, and the people who come to church are middle class. They all wear, the men wear suits, the children, the boy children wear suits from infancy. And we then see people coming to church who, because we're so small, we have a good idea of people's situations, but they can't afford to buy suits for their kids.
Yeah.
They can't, it's a reality. And within a matter of weeks, the kids are wearing suits, and it's being bought out of their poverty. And it just causes me pain, because the kids didn't need suits, but
a pair of school trousers and a shirt would do just the very same thing, right?
Right. And so I eventually,
if they're at school, certainly. If they're not at school,
yeah.
That's
well, I eventually even stopped doing that with my youngest son, when he was my youngest son. I just stopped. I thought, I don't want to. I don't want to be part of this. We have to look the same, to the point where if someone walks in, they will feel uncomfortable and out of place because they're not wearing the right clothing. It's that extreme. And so
I've been in that position myself,
right?
Even as a member of the church. I can't remember exactly the reason for, I can't remember if I'd forgotten to wash my clothes. I didn't have a lot of skirts or whatever that fitted me anymore, and I wore trousers, and again, the person who brought it up to me, I love her so much. But she's just the type of person who just,
we both know already who you're talking about.
But I just blatantly, when she said, you really are supposed to be wearing a skirt or a dress to church, and I just said, well, what would you rather? Would you rather I was here with my trousers on, or would you rather I wasn't here at all? And whether she took that, and thought about it, I don't know. But that was something that I then reflected on for a number of years, and I left the church, for a long time after that. But when I became a teacher in young women's, it was something that I made sure when we were speaking about Sunday best and things in young women's, I made sure my young women knew that no matter how or what someone walked in wearing, that could be their Sunday best, that we don't have the right to judge. We don't have the right to say to them, you need to be wearing a skirt. You need to, supposing it's a skirt that's too short. One of my young women did wear a skirt that was a little bit short. Was it my place to tell her she shouldn't be wearing that skirt? I'd rather she was there.
And can we just stop looking at women's legs and,
exactly.
and young women's legs? And yeah, I mean, that interests me. So when you were wearing trousers, did the person, I mean, we know who you're talking about, because it could only
she
be,
has the lovely
and we love her.
And I have so many conversations with her. And even, you know, when it comes to, I have a family member, as I say, who's LGBTQ, and she said, you know, I don't bother. You know, it doesn't bother me what he is. If he's good to me, I'm good to him, and that's all that matters. And I thought, and she's a long-standing member of the church, and I thought,
they are great people.
Well done. You know, that's the way it should be. But
was that said before or after sacrament? And if it was,
well, I think it was years ago when sacrament was last. So it was probably,
so it would have been before,
pretty early on in the day, I would say.
Could you? How comfortable could you feel taking sacrament or being in the chapel while wearing trousers? Did that affect your ability to be comfortable?
I then again, I used to carry a guilt if I didn't wear a skirt, or you know, I would be stressing then, you know, maybe I can't go to church because I don't have a skirt to wear today. Or now it doesn't bother me. I've been to church multiple times and I've wore trousers. You know, if I kind of did it with you at one point, and it's not that I'm out there trying to make a statement as such, like, look at me, I'm wearing trousers, but I think, like you say, that there are people there who maybe don't, like, I'm not a skirt. How often do you see me? There are people who go about life and they enjoy life in a skirt, they enjoy life in dresses. That isn't me. Maybe in the summer, you know, maybe a little kind of long maxi dress or something. I'm not a skirt person. I've been a young girl, I was a bit of a tomboy. I'm not so much tomboyish now, but I love, like, living in my black leggings. That's mostly all you will see me wearing for the most part. Maybe an odd time, a pair of, and even jeans, it's got to feel like elasticated jeans. I don't do button jeans. But see, if I rock up to church in a pair of jeans, does it really matter? Does it really matter?
Does it? Because my answer is absolutely not.
And I am that voice that I say absolutely not.
So
it is better we have bums on seats than worrying about what people are wearing to church.
Exactly. And for 21st century saints who are women, I find it offensive that we're even having conversations like this today. You know what? It will be so fun, I think, to dig into during a future episode when we can get some more thoughts on the subject. But you know what? Maybe for tonight, because we covered a kind of nice broad circle. Maybe for tonight we could kind of start to wrap up. Is there anything that you hope for the podcast live stream? Is there anything that you
I guess I'm just looking forward to hearing different people's views, different people's thoughts on like you say, being in the 21st century of being in the church, or even of being out the church, because I would be interested to hear maybe some people's experiences of not being in the church but still coming unto Christ. You know, I would love if there was someone out there who, because I've been part of a few groups on Facebook. I'm not in anything that's too, you know, but I've just been in to look at a few people's experiences of why they left the church and things, and sometimes, you know, people have completely lost their faith in God and Jesus. That isn't my experience, but again, I don't disrespect you for that. I don't think, how can you believe for so long and then just believe that there's nothing? I don't view it that way, because that's their experience. So I guess I'm just looking forward to just hearing hopefully a various, and I guess the thing is, we've said, you know, we're open to suggestions, you know, if there's someone knows that we could get on, or even if it's something they want us to come on and discuss, you know. I prefer to have a bit of a prior notice than, as you know, being put in the spot. Sometimes I'm like, But again,
I literally gave you 10 minutes today.
She did. I had no makeup on, and to be honest, I don't really wear makeup much now, and my hair was a riot, so in a way I was kind of glad we got to do it again, because I got the hair straighteners out and I got a little makeup on. So I looked a bit more. I literally was actually, I'm going to be truthful, I was literally out of my bed. um, but um, but yeah, I guess I'm just, it's going to be a good experience for me because this is way out my comfort zone, way out my comfort zone. And yeah, I just look forward to see what this brings. And again, it was a wonderful idea. And it's just, it's just good to see, to see so many people I wouldn't have been aware of, Peter Bleakley. You kind of told me a bit about him, and then obviously through Sunstone and various things, I managed to get in touch with a few people who are either loving still being an active Mormon while trying to advocate, or trying to let people know the difficulties that people are having. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And I think for me, while we've got guests like actively engaged, well-respected member of the church, Richard Osler, and we have many more people to chat with. It's gonna be great. A lot of these voices may be kind of new in the community of Mormonism and Mormon discussions, because we do have that worldwide bent now. We do have that worldwide focus. So I'm looking forward to doing that. There are a few people I am especially excited to speak about who are comfortable talking about, who can tell us the work that they've done as they have studied and learned about Heavenly Mother. We have people who have who are living the word of wisdom in new and exciting ways, that we get to ask questions like, what does an extreme version of the word of wisdom look like? How should we be living that in the 21st century? Is it still relevant today? We can ask ourselves challenging questions. We can learn new things. You had mentioned, Alana, about education. Absolutely. And that was my goal in, thinking about how we could do this, is, to educate, to help us learn new things, and to help us hear and feel the voices and experiences of those people who do think it's just me, or whose voices we need to bring into our small sphere. We have friends and colleagues who, Debbie is doing great work in her Relief Society. If anybody wants to check out the Sunstone UK page, there's a lot of good discussions happening there. Also, I want to really highly recommend the At Last She Said It podcast. Is amazing. The women who run that are doing incredible work. There are so many great things that are happening out there just now, that to be part of the church or global Mormonism at this time is bloody thrilling. I am loving
Did you say bloody?
Bloody. We're in the UK. Americans don't think that's swearing.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I'm like,
Daisy's not allowed to say it. But it's like, it's past midnight here. Hey, we've already talked about Santa Claus.
Oh, it actually is. Wow.
So this is the Not for Kids episode, I guess. But yeah, as we get better at the technology, and as we get as we're able to sort of put this onto our podcast platform and stream live on Facebook too, we're going to get a better hang of the technology here, and this will go a bit more smoothly, I think. But I guess the thing that I'd really wanted to mention about our vision for the podcast is that, I'm speaking with friends who are saying that they felt ostracized in the church, and I guess I want to say, look, that is not my church, and I'm heartbroken because I understand, because it is, because we're the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, right? It is what it is, but that is not my church. That is not Alana's church. That's not the church that I recognize that Jesus is in, and no one gets to make someone else feel ostracized. Lots of things are happening with people either officially or unofficially being told that they're not welcome or being squeezed out, and without knowing your story, without knowing your name, I don't know. It makes me heartbroken, and I'm not prepared to sit back and watch people that I love feel like they don't have a place. That's not what I'm here for.
I think going along with you saying that, you know, like if you've seen people feel ostracised, again, we touched on this earlier when we spoke to nobody, you know, that you know, should people's friendship be dependent on whether they attend church or not? You know, because they're still people, they're still a son or daughter of God, and it shouldn't matter. And like you say, it's easy for people to judge and think, oh, they've just walked away from the church because they took offence with it. But if you don't actually know their story, like I say, I have family members who I never thought I would see ever leave the church, and I still, although they're my family, don't know the full reasons for why they walked away from the church. I hope one day they will talk to me about that, but I allow them to do that in their own time. I also respect the fact that they don't try and go out their way to make me see the issues they see with the church. You know, they don't do that at all. If I bring up something to that family member, they will happily discuss it with me. You know, so they still have a great respect that they said they will not be the person to make other people, that's not what they intend, to make other people come away from the faith because of their experience. And I think that's what you said is very important, that without knowing people's experience of why they walked away, and should it matter why someone's walked away from the church, we still should love them, we still should reach out to them. You know, one of my family members, as much as she's away from the church, she's great at reaching out to people. You know, she's still, like, I look at her and I think you're still a great church member without actually being active in the church, because she does so much for people. She reaches out, she always makes sure everyone's okay. If there's a need, she's there, you know, and I love that and I respect that. That, like I say, something, and it was it Debbie who said it on the thing when she said, or someone on that thing that I watched, it was Fireside, where they said about not using the word less active, and I love that, because just because someone does not attend church does not mean they're not active in Christ. Or and my family, couple of my family members still very much have a relationship with God and with Christ, just in a very different way. So it doesn't mean because people aren't attending church that they're not active in doing Christ's work, you know.
And this is something that I feel so strongly about, that we are accountable for each other. I mean, if you don't know better, you can do better. You know, but if we are willing to take the time to understand, to listen, and to be there for each other, just to sit in that space, and if we are who we say we are, if we do what we say we're going to do, then we are covenanting to bind our hearts to Jesus, to bind our hearts to the divine every week. And we're asked to bind our hearts to God and to each other. We're asked that, you know, those are the two important things that we do. And so if we are bound, if we're connected to each other in these really powerful ways, then if someone behaves in a way or pulls away, or if we do that, who are we to pull those, you know, to rip those connections apart? How dare that happen? Those are sacred connections, those are sacred relationships. And so as we have them, we become accountable to the Lord for that. So I am not prepared to leave people behind. I'm not prepared, you know.
You told me you were keeping me kicking and screaming if you had to.
and exactly, and I am. Yeah, you're going nowhere. But you know, the reality is that if the church organization, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, if it is causing you pain, then that's bigger than what I want. That's you know, but I will be here for you in that space. And while I want you to stay, absolutely, you know, that's bigger than what I get to, you know. So yeah, so I wanted to share those things and these hopes for the future, so that we can bless the journeys of all of these people that we're going to get to hear from. It's going to be great. Couple of things worth saying. As you've noticed, we get honest, we
Yeah,
get vulnerable.
very much so. Very much so.
But we also, this is real life. This is not a super slick podcast.
Yeah, we've not got it all typed up what we're going to say. It's real in that moment.
In that moment. Yeah, so that we can rely on the spirit and not because I'm lazy. We also potentially, my son could call for me and I may have to drop everything in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
You know,
and
you're
then it's all
likely,
on me.
It's all on you. And that, you know, you're more likely to have Daisy's head sneaking up at the corner of the microphone. You know, we'll this is our home, this is our life, and this is what's in our
real
hearts.
People.
We are real people. You're going to get
real
some
experiences.
Yep. Because the church that I love is worth it. Because the Jesus that I know is worth it, and I feel like this is important.
Absolutely.
Anyway, okay, so I think we'll take this out for tonight, but let's invite everybody. If we will put some links to some of the podcasts that we mentioned down in the show notes. What we'll also do is make sure that we publicize Brother Richard Osler, who's coming on Friday. So Friday at 5 p.m. GMT. No, BST, because it's British summertime.
I know, I always get confused with all that. I'm like, BMT, GST, like, whatever time it is.
You know, we're going to publicise it anyway. I think I already said the wrong date, but yeah, so it's this Friday, that's the 16th, right, at 5 p.m. If you guys have questions for him, then please get in touch and let us know. Also, just get in touch and just let us know what's on your
my
heart.
inbox is open. Add me on Facebook if you wish. I'm Alana Wilson Bryce on there.
We'll send out all of the links and stuff like that so that you can contact us
send a request and keep in touch. Absolutely.
So any questions that you have for us, any guests that you would like us to reach out to, but yeah, so please stay in touch, people. Have a blessed week, and thank you so much for hanging out with us. Alana, thank you. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
Love you lots, girl, and everyone be good and make good choices.
That's Jane's all-time phrase.
That's our phrase. Make good choices.